going to be a few more minutes before Chris gets here, but I'm going to go ahead and get started, and we can, figure things out as we go. So I'm Ryan Kaiser. I'm going to be the moderator today. The panel is Knights of Sportsball, so if anybody is confused about where you're at, this is where you're at. The idea here is that we're going to be exploring, how geek and nerd culture and sports are a little more intertwined than you may have thought, or maybe you already knew, because obviously you're all here, so you may know that already. I'd like to give the panelists a chance to introduce themselves, and we'll get Chris to introduce himself when he gets here, but Peter, if you wouldn't mind saying who you are, your pronouns, and then your interest and why you chose the panel.
First of all, I am not Chris Kluwe. Also, I do not play professional sports. So I wear a lot of hats. First of all, if any of you went to the Lasso panel last year, I ran that, and that was one of my favorite things in the world. So some of the things that are relevant. I'm a father, I'm a Montessori teacher, play a lot of video games, I teach chess, I play a lot of sports. One thing I hope we explore is, I noticed that a lot of people, they watch certain sports and they play certain sports, but they're not always the same sports. I'm mainly here because I'm too sporty for my nerd friends and too nerdy for my sport friends, and I really wish we could all just get along so I could have one conversation with everybody.
Awesome, thank you. And like I said, I'm Ryan, he, him pronouns, and my interest here in sports started when I was really young. My dad got me into both sports and video games and D&D and a few other of the weird hobbies that I have. And professionally, I write software for a company that deals with sports data. So like the analytics part of sports and the fantasy sports and all of that stuff, like sign me up, I'm involved. That's the kind of stuff I like to do. And it's been interesting to watch over the years as the two interests sort of collided. For at least me, I thought I was kind of like the oddball, but it seems like maybe I wasn't that odd after all. Many of these athletes are picking this up and having more interest, and when Chris gets here, he'll be able to share some more of the experiences he's seen as a professional football player. But he's not the only athlete who has gotten into these kind of video games and anime and other things, right? So you have Tim Duncan in the NBA, who has apparently said that he's interested in World of Warcraft and plays Dungeons and Dragons and likes going to Renaissance fairs. And Mike Daniels, who played as a defensive lineman for the Green Bay Packers, he was really big into anime. I remember watching some documentary, and there he was, and I was absolutely not expecting an athlete to say, yeah, I love like Dragon Ball Z and these anime, like they're great, like let's go. So it's almost as if the two things have kind of collided, right? And as the video games and the anime culture and some of the other, D&D, those things, they start to become more mainstream, and you see more of these athletes expressing that interest, right? So I guess just to ask around the room a little bit, how many of you here actively watch sports on TV or go to games or, okay, pretty good number. And how many of you play sports as well? Okay, so some good crossover there. Maybe if anybody's interested in sharing, what are the sports that you're interested in? Hockey?
Playing softball.
Softball, nice.
Kendo.
Nice.
Basketball.
Basketball? Football. Yeah.
Roller derby.
Roller derby, okay, yeah. Let's go. Bowling? You know what? My favorite part about some of the different things that are sports, with things like ESPN 8 the Ocho, right? We're kind of memeing a little bit, right? But
Dodgeball.
yeah, right. Dodgeball, darts, bowling is great. There's, cornhole if you're hanging out with friends or whatever, throwing the bean bags, right, into the
Well, if
boards.
we're doing that, social dance, that's physical too.
Yeah, exactly. So,
The gathering.
How hard are you beating down your people?
yeah,
I feel like corgi racing when that's on the ocean.
exactly.
That fantasy league is really nuts.
And, like, speaking of fantasy sports, right? I heard that mentioned back there. I was surprised about 10 years ago to learn that there was Supreme Court fantasy. Like,
What?
yeah, I have no idea how it works. I
Is
just
every
know-
team losing right now to Trump?
Yes. So it's really interesting to see how, so many of you here are, have this interest and share this interest over something that traditionally when I was growing up, right, there was still that animosity between like the nerds and the geeks and the jocks, right? But we've kind of started to erode some of those boundaries, which I think is fun. Peter, do you have anything that you would want to add to that?
So much, but I'll keep it brief. Has anyone seen either of the Space Jam movies? Okay, have you seen the second one with LeBron James? Okay, so I highly recommend you see it because the basic storyline is like LeBron James is himself. His son is like not that much into basketball. He wants to be a game design, and they basically create a world where like he creates a game where it's not just about the points, it's about the style, it's about power-ups and teleportation, all this. And I think this is the most nerd sports thing ever.
Is it actually brawny?
No, it is not. So that what the funny thing is like it's the same family structure basically, but with actors. Because his wife is hot, but it's not his actual wife. It's what's her name from Walking Dead, Discovery, the main person in Discovery, whatever her name is, Lieutenant. Anyway, I'm not that panel, that's why I'm blanking on it. Anyway, no, and he does have 2 kids, but they're actors. It's not brawny. But I don't know if it's autobiographical, but. So there's that, and then the other thing is, has everyone ever played a video game called Blood Bowl? It's like football, but with orcs and stuff. There's also a board game version that's similar to that. It's not exactly Blood Bowl, but it's like cybernetic robots versus other cybernetic robots. So here's the thing, so I have a 9-year-old, and up until last year, he was only Marvel, DC, Legos. This year he decided, we're an NBA family. He learned his numbers and letters through watching NBA basketball. But this year he's a soccer player, and he said, I'm mainly a soccer player because I've seen this anime called Tsubasa. So what I love is that anime in Japan for a long time has been doing really, anime is always very focused on, like, there's a cooking show, there's a whatever. So there's a basketball, there's a soccer, there's Haikyuu, which is a volleyball anime. So my kid mainly, he was already into soccer, but crazy about soccer, but because of watching an anime about soccer. And of course, everyone basically has superpowers, is like flying through the air and doing headers that are 80 miles per hour. So very unrealistic standards. But so I'm just interested in where things like match up, where there's a video game about sports, or there's not really like Magic the Gathering or enough like tabletop thing about sports yet. And here is the man of the hour.
So
Wait, who are you again?
I'm a random dude. I'm cosplaying as a Vikings fan.
there you go. So, Chris, I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself. Peter and I have already gone through that as well, but just name, pronouns, and interest in why you chose this panel.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I'm Chris Kluwe, former punter for the Minnesota Vikings, pronouns he, him, his. And I chose this panel because as a former professional athlete, I figured there was some crossover on a panel called Knights of Sportsball. So yeah, looking forward to talking about it.
Awesome. So we've just been kind of, talking about how it's really interesting to see the intertwining of the two cultures, right?
Mm-hmm.
It used to be, I know you've talked about this in some of your other panels, but, growing up there was this still pretty distinct divide, and now it's less so, and we're kind of breaking down that barrier.
Okay.
So I guess, why don't we get into some questions? I'll give the audience a chance to also ask questions. There's pieces of paper around, so if you'd like to ask a question at any point, feel free and we'll kind of work through it. What do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions you've heard from people, either inside the industry or even outside of the industry, about things that are considered traditionally geeky?
Right. Yeah, so I think one of the biggest misconceptions people have, particularly about current professional sports, is that athletes only do what you see them do on television, right? So as a football player, I am only a football player. Or, someone is a gymnast, they are only a gymnast. And the thing is that we are human beings, just like everyone else. We have a broad variety of interests. And one of the things I was actually really fortunate to see in my time in the NFL is sort of the real-time societal shift of where nerd culture became mainstream. So like when I first got in the NFL, it's 2005, a lot of the veterans were guys who grew up in like the mid-80s, early 90s. It's still very much the geek-jock dichotomy, right? Like their interests were, hunting, fishing, boats, outdoor stuff. Like it was, the manly men who play football. Whereas in around 2008, 2009, so my fourth year or so, fourth or fifth year, now these are the kids that have grown up with a PlayStation in the household, with an Xbox in the household, with access to the internet on a regular basis. And it was very much like they had grown up playing video games. Like some of them grown up playing Magic the Gathering. Like this is just normal stuff to them because that's how their world is. And which I think what you're going to see moving forward is there's the next generation of athletes, which we're already starting to see right now, is these are people who have never known a world without the internet, which is a very, that's a big thing. Like I can still remember picking up the phone and having to call someone in order to actually get in contact with them. And if they weren't there, you hoped they had an answering machine. Because otherwise it was like, well, guess I'll find something else to do. Whereas nowadays it's like, yes, everyone has a cell phone. Like you can send a text, you can find them on social media. So yeah, just remember that athletes are human beings, and that while you see us as what we do for our jobs, a lot of guys have various interests, and they come from various parts of the country. So there really is this sort of broad cross-section of humanity within the locker room, at least for football. I can't speak authoritatively on other sports, but I know for football that's how it was for me.
Cool. And you kind of alluded to it briefly, but how has the culture shifted in terms of the hobbies that people have had? Were there any teammates that really surprised you? You weren't expecting them to have one of these interests that suddenly it's there.
Yeah, so one of the guys, he was with the Vikings during preseason. He was really into Final Fantasy XI. And I have played some grindy MMOs, but Final Fantasy XI takes the cake on that. I was just like, damn, man, respect. Because at the time, I was really big into World of Warcraft, and it was just like I bounced off Final Fantasy XI because I was like, I just don't have the time for this. And here's me saying someone putting in 4 to 5 hours a day on World of Warcraft. So yeah, that was one that was really surprising, where I was like, okay, yeah, no, that's okay. You are really into video games.
Nice. And then you obviously video games were a big focus, but were there any other hobbies that you heard about more frequently than others from any of the teammates, or was it mostly video games in your experience?
Yeah, it was mainly video games, because those they're both something you can do by yourself, right? They're also social activities. So it's something guys grow up playing Madden with their friends, or playing Call of Duty, or just hanging out. I mean, for example, me and my friends growing up, we played GoldenEye, right? Because that was the game at the time. It was just we didn't really have an online capacity to do that, so it was you gather at someone's house. But yeah, no, for most of the guys in the football world, it is video games. I know board games are starting to become a bit more popular in that culture. We'll see if that lasts, considering the current state of the board game industry, how it's getting kind of dissolved by our administration. But yeah, no, it was mainly video games. And then,
okay.
Well, and then the other thing too, though, is that the first kind of iteration of athletes in there was mainly stuff like Madden, right? Like stuff like Call of Duty, kind of more the mainstream type games. But then as the years went on, it was like, yeah, no, I'm playing Assassin's Creed. Like I'm playing, more obscure types of games. And I was like, cool, that we have something to talk about. No one ever joined me in painting War Machine miniatures, though. That was apparently that was a bridge too far.
Yeah, I find it interesting. There's been a few documentaries out there. There was one actually that I just saw about Madden specifically, and how, when the game first came out, Madden, the coach, was very particular about like how the game needed to play, and it needed to feel like football, and he was very adamant about this. And how it has kind of evolved into this thing where the players are like, oh, I'm in Madden. This is it. I've made it. How do you think? I know you don't play sports games yourself. You've mentioned, but how much of a driving factor do you think that is for some of these players to see themselves in the NHL version of the game, or FIFA, or something like that?
Yeah, no, it's a huge deal for players. No joke. I've witnessed guys get into heated arguments over their speed stat in Madden, to where they're like, "I'm gonna go race you right now to prove that I'm faster than you." So yeah, they take it really seriously. And then there was one year where they didn't put in the long snappers into Madden, and I noticed, because we had a copy in the players' lounge. I'm like, wait, hold up. Why isn't my long snapper on the field when we're going out to punt? And so I actually wrote a thing for Game Informer, hey Madden, where are the long snappers? so then they actually went back and added them in, because it's they're on the team too. They deserve to be represented out there. But yeah, and for a lot of guys, it very much is the culmination of, okay, you've witnessed these players out there in video game form, right? And also in real life form. And I know for me personally, my very first year when I was a rookie with Seattle during the preseason, it was holy crap, I'm on the same field as Sean Alexander, as Matt Hasselbeck, right? As Steve Hutchinson. These were guys I played in NFL 2K1. That was the only sports video game I played in college, because my roommate had a Dreamcast. And I played the Rams and just ran crossing routes the entire time. Because you can't cover both Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce. But it was very much a surreal moment of I'm actually out there now. I'm on the same field as what I had seen. And I think for a lot of guys they really do feel that way, because they grew up playing these games.
Yeah, it's fascinating to hear that from people who suddenly they're experiencing effectively immortalization in these video games, right? So it's just interesting to see how that has evolved and how it's become a big thing. They were talking about actually the speed rating thing. They have, I think they brought Chad Ochocinco into the team. EA sends him around to different fields to reevaluate the rating that players get, because they'll get these phone calls and voicemails about it. It's intense.
Guys get super pissed about it.
It's intense. So I guess I'm interested. I have two more here that I'd like to at least cover, but
can I talk about misconceptions too?
Yeah. I'm sorry, Peter.
No, I'm here. It's all about me now.
Yes. Let's go to misconceptions, and then we can move on to the next questions.
So one thing I think is funny, I'm an elementary school teacher, so as part of my job, I have to know all the sports things. Sorry, Chris, I love you, and you're actually my favorite Viking, because I remember back in the day when you were speaking up for LGBTQ rights, and people just saying, kick the fucking ball. Stick to football. Yeah, because there have been so many instances of that, and I don't want athletes just to stick to football. I want them to cause them get trouble. Right. So thank you for being one of the early people to do that.
Yeah, no, of course.
Before it was cool. Yeah. But other than that, I barely understand football. I don't play football. I like it because there's always something going on. I've been an NBA fan since I was age 13, but there's usually nothing going on. It's the last minute. So anyway, so I teach children, and there's always someone who's geeking about World of Warcraft or Minecraft or Pokemon, but there's other people crazy into sports. So I have to know these things, but language is not that different. So that's the misconception for me, is it's really the same thing. So for example, if you go to a game, everyone's wearing their favorite player. That is just fucking cosplay. This dude is cosplaying. Yesterday, my son made me dress up as Messi, and he was dressed as Ronaldo. That is cosplay. Or my favorite video games are cooperative squad-based with stats and stuff. That's basically NBA 2K6. You've got 5 people, they've got different skills. I haven't played the latest NBA 2K, but apparently there's now signature skills, which is basically like if you're making a D&D team, you've got like a rogue, or you've got someone who's got perception. I mean, it's not that different. Everyone likes to debate who is the best, whether we're talking about like Hulk versus Thor or Messi versus Ronaldo. It's like everyone, it has this really, you know, thing that they're deeply into. You playing your first season in Seattle might have been live action role play because basically you were playing your idols. So I would like to see the language merge, and I would like to see more cons that are, I mean, I know that there was just a very niche con this past fall. I think it was sports romantasy, specifically romance books about sports, and that's it. So I don't know if we need to have a sports con or this. I would just like to see them merge more because I love all the things. I want to talk to all the people about the things, and usually I cannot find any one person who will talk to me about all the things, which is why I need to have more than one friend, which is fine.
I think the sports con is called the Super Bowl.
But I don't think sports fans see it that way. They seem like it's like a very serious thing, where I feel like most nerds know that it is not a very serious thing. It's just our life. Oh, one more thing. We were hearing all the Klingon from next door, and that totally reminds me of Haka from New Zealand rugby, because it's all about like intimidation and force. Like there's so much mythology about sports. There's so much mythology about nerd stuff. It's the same stuff, different category. That's all I want to say. The misconception that they're actually different in any way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I've actually talked about that in other panels where it's like, people have different hobbies. It's okay to have different hobbies. Like, everyone should be able to like what they like, and then try to recognize where the overlap happens, right? And that you might share a lot more in common with that person who you thought was, oh no, that's something I don't understand. No, you actually probably do have a lot in common with that person. You just have to talk to each other and be willing to accept that you might have slightly different point of views on what those things mean to you. So yeah, let people do what they do.
Exactly. And Peter kind of alluded to this, so I'll go to this one first. So fantasy sports, right? It's becoming a big deal. We briefly were talking about it, how, you know, even 10 years ago I learned that Supreme Court fantasy was a thing. And it's like, all right, like,
I think
all right.
Supreme Court nightmare would be more appropriate.
Yes, these days, yes, that is true. And you know, there's the fan favorite argument. Oh well, fantasy sports is just D&D for sports nerds, right? Because you're building your team, and so Peter kind of alluded to that. Do pro athletes compete in that as well? And was it ever controversial for them to do so? Because obviously there was the recent thing with Shohei Ohtani and the you know, betting and the translator betting. So is that something that, in your experience, was common? Have you participated in any of that?
Yeah, so I actually, again, got to witness that kind of happen in real time. So one of the guys I played with at UCLA, Maurice Jones-Drew, he was a big driver of making fantasy football a big thing in the NFL. And so, you know, before, the fantasy football really wasn't a thing that NFL players cared about. It was just like, oh yeah, no, that's something else. Like that doesn't concern us. And then kind of, I want to say it was probably like 2000, maybe 2007, 2008. That's when it really started taking off, and it, like, guys started playing fantasy football. And you know, I never played fantasy football because the only fantasy I play involves Wizards and Dragons. But I actually played with guys who would play fantasy football, and so, you know, some of them would pick themselves on their team. You know, so some of them would pick other people. But it's this weird sort of like gray area, right? Where it's like, if you're in a position to influence the outcome of something, are you acting ethically? Now, in the case of fantasy football, you probably are, because for your team to win, you need to do well. So it's not like you're going to throw the game. But a big problem we're currently having to grapple with is the rise of the sports betting sites, right? You know, FanDuel, DraftKings, all those. And we're seeing what that means both for the fans and for the athletes, and that athletes are starting to face a lot more abuse. Fans are getting a lot more invested, but I would say in a very unhealthy way. And it's that, like, I have a lot of money riding on this game. You know, if you screw it up, now I'm pissed at you because you lost me money. And so the thing is, as athletes, I don't care about your bet. Like, I'm there to do well for me. Like, and if that wins you something, great, good on you. But like, I'm not going to be doing this for you. Like, I'm just trying to win. And so as fans, like fans need to understand that if you can't healthfully engage in betting, you probably shouldn't be doing it. Like same way as gamers, if you can't healthfully engage in something like, say, League of Legends or Call of Duty, you probably shouldn't be doing it. Because at the end of the day, you're stressing yourself out, you're making your own life worse, and if you have actual money riding on it, you might not be able to afford that, and that's going to affect your life in very material ways. So I would like to see a lot more regulation on the betting sites, because frankly right now it feels like it's too much of a, well, anything goes and they have all the money, so we're not really passing any laws against it. But there is a place for fantasy sports. I think there is a place for sports betting for people who enjoy that kind of thing. It just needs to be done responsibly.
Yeah, I agree. It seems like almost any time you flip on any sporting event now, right, you're bombarded with commercial after commercial for these things, and it's really, the shift into that has been really interesting, because I know in Europe I think it's much more common over there.
Oh, yeah, super common.
So it's
Well, so my wife watches Premier League, so yeah, it's like teams are like constantly sponsored by betting sites. And
What's your favorite team?
Crystal Palace.
Okay. Yep. Sounds a little bit fragile, just as a Ted Lasso fan, sounds a little bit fragile.
Yeah. So this time they actually beat Manchester City. What? Yep. It was in the I think it was the FA Cup finals. Palace actually won against City. For those unfamiliar with English Premier League soccer, Ted Lasso is based on Crystal Palace, the football club there. And so one of the big things in season 1, sorry, spoiler alert, they go up against Manchester City. It's this huge underdog versus like the top dog, and doesn't end well in Ted Lasso, but this year it ended well for Crystal Palace. So yeah, my wife was super excited about that. But yeah, no, I think it's actually really interesting how I think there is a correlation between the rise of loot boxes and microtransactions in video gaming and the rise in sports betting, and how it's kind of like really infiltrated that area, because the people who run the numbers, they saw, oh, microtransactions, those make us a lot of money. And then the sports betting people were like, what if you could just bet on everything? That makes us a lot of money. And so yeah, I haven't seen any sort of like papers or studies on it, but I would be willing to bet there's a significant amount of overlap in just studying the psychology of human beings and then realizing, oh shoot, well yeah, this works in video games. Like people bought horse armor, so might as well allow them to bet on the coin flip.
Yeah, exactly. Peter, did you have anything you wanted to add on this one?
No, I have a segue to some other unforbidden land. I have nothing more to say about this.
Okay.
I love segues, except when they go off cliffs.
Segues are great. I agree.
Sorry, too soon?
If you want to touch on the other...
So I know we have at least one roller derby fan in the audience. To me, roller derby, specifically women's roller derby in the 80s and the 2000s and now, is the perfect intersection of nerds and sports. I was the mascot called Rocket Boy for the Minnesota Roller Girls back in like the 2000s. And what I loved about it is it was like this vibe that this is a sport, but we have a costume. So like every single woman, no two costumes were exactly the same, and to me it felt a lot like professional wrestling. So like when you I grew up like watching Hulk Hogan, not like The Rock, but like all of it is just, whether it's fixed or not, I'm pretty sure it's fixed, it is theater. It's because it's not just about the physical competition, it's about how you do it, it's about your name, it's about the storyline behind it, which is actually kind of why I watch NBA, because like I want to know, like I know who's sleeping with whose girlfriend, but also who is the best free throw shot. So like I kind of like that, and so the spectacle of Minnesota of roller derby, I think, is really great, and that's moved in a different direction. I think in the last 5 years, there's been less, there's been more gender-free roller derby, and there's been less sexual objectification. But that was actually kind of the fun part, I think, a lot for anyway. So, I just think there are some sports that lend themselves to saying, well, my personality, my brand is part of who I am.
Right.
I mean, like, that's why I watch NBA and not college, because in college, I don't know their beef, but like in NBA, I'm like, which team is Kyrie gonna be on this week? So like, kind of the personalities and like the mentality behind is what I think is interesting.
Yeah, no, so I love roller derby because I watched the original rollerball growing up. Oh yeah. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like again, huge nerd growing up. I was like, yeah, no, that seems like a really cool sport.
Versus rollers.
Yeah, versus rollers.
So,
we have a question.
yes.
Well, it's just a kind of a follow-up to what you were just talking about, and this idea of like costumes, which I always tell my husband, like the football players, they're just putting on their costumes for the game. But just the increase in celebratory dances and how those are just becoming more and more, there's more showmanship now in football than there ever used to be.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that is that the league is finally starting to understand that yes, there is a place for like this is a competitive game, right? Like people are watching this because they want their team to win, but this is also entertainment, right? Like people watch to be entertained, and it's a lot more fun to watch someone set up the bowling pins and then all the players fall over versus like, okay, well, I guess we scored a touchdown and now we got to run back. And I mean, like, who can forget Randy Moss? The Green Bay Packers, like, or T.O. pulling a Sharpie out of his sock to autograph the ball. Like those are stories that people remember. Like they give you a reason to come back. They give you a storyline, right? Like and as you were saying about roller derby, like it's entertainment. People should be excited to watch what you're doing, not like obligated. Like, oh, my team's playing, I feel like I gotta support them.
I saw your hand up back there.
Yeah, I think just to that same point, are we seeing this professional sports as entertainment more, and maybe that's why we're seeing the overlap with other entertainment venues and less of the, that's the jock thing, because now it's just all entertainment, and so that helps blur the line.
Yeah, no, I absolutely think that's the case, and I think it goes in the other direction too. And that esports are a big thing now, right? And competitive gaming has become a really big thing. Like it used to be, like fighting game tournaments were just really underground things. You'd show up at the arcade and like that, there'd be maybe 50 people, and that would be a big deal because that would be a huge turnout for a fighting game tournament. And now it's like, okay, yeah, no, there's Super Smash Brothers tournaments, there's Street Fighter tournaments, there's obviously League of Legends, there's professional like first-person shooter tournaments, and so yeah, I think it's flowed both ways in that sports has become more entertainment and then entertainment has become more competitive in terms of like people like to see other people striving against each other because I think that speaks to something within us as human beings where we like watching people compete.
Yeah, I find the fandom specifically around esports to be really interesting, and it's kind of neat to see how it has impacted things and brought more people into it than you would expect. So it's that was actually my last question, was esports related. So
yeah. Well, so if I can go on that a little bit, because I've been a huge proponent of esports. Like esports are awesome, and I think like they're slowly getting the respect they should be getting. But I think a lot of people look at it like, oh, you're just clicking a mouse on a computer or pressing buttons. Like, how can you be an athlete? And when you actually look at the reaction times required, it's like, oh yeah, no, that's the same reaction time required to hit a baseball. Like, you really have to be good at what you're doing in order to pull these things off. And so the big thing that esports is going to have to grapple with is the fact that like the NFL owns football, right? But they just own the rights to American football, right? If someone else wanted to create a football league, they can make a football league. Like you can go out, if anyone wanted to make their own football league, you could do that. It might not be successful, but you wouldn't have lawyers coming in and being like, no, you cannot use the sport of football for your product.
The wrestlers did that.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's how we got the USFL?
Yeah, that's how we got the USFL, the AFL. Like again, like that's how we get these things. Whereas in esports, a company owns that game, right? So I can't go create my own League of Legends league. Like Riot will come in real quick and be like, nope, you got to shut that down. That's copyright infringement. So for me personally, I don't see esports like lasting until these companies figure out how to sort of democratize the process, right? Because there's also something to be said about, well, what happens if Riot shuts down, right? All those League of Legends teams, like, they can't play anymore because they don't have access to the game itself. So that for esports to really take off, it needs to be less about the companies that own them. It has to be more about the sport, and that's going to be tough because companies want to own their product, right? They want to make money off their product, but I think in the long term, if they figure out a way to actually be like, okay, like maybe we have a league of esports, right? Where all these different companies come together and say, you know what? Here's our games, we're committed to supporting each other, so that way we can all keep pushing forward and making money. That's where I see esports heading, hopefully in the near future, but it might be the far future.
I saw you with the green circle there.
So you mentioned like the costuming and stuff, and in professional wrestling as well as in roller derby, and it reminded me of I was in middle school during Attitude Era WWF, being like the biggest wrestling thing in the world, and it was also the only wrestling that I was even aware of at the time when I was a kid, and to me it almost seemed like it was a jock thing because of like the people at my school who I knew liked it were also like the ones who were into sports, and I wasn't. So like now looking back at it, I'm like, well, that was really like a nerdy thing, but at the time it was kind of intimidating to me. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of show that perspective.
Sure, thank you. I see you back there with the yellow X.
And I apologize if this has been covered already. We had in a little late. Can you talk a little bit about what gatekeeping looks like in sports as compared to fantasy and conventions and fandoms? Because it feels like with the Taylor Swift era, we saw a lot more gatekeeping in the NFL than ever.
Yeah, no, they're literally almost identical to each other. It's that you have to meet some arbitrary threshold to be considered a true fan, right? Like if you don't know what the team did 50 years ago in their game against, blah, 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 it's like, you're not a real fan. It's like, who cares? Like, if you like that, great, good for you. If I don't like that, I don't like that. Like, why does that matter if I care about, the team and what's going on? And it kind of gets back to my earlier point of just letting people like what they like, right? Like we all have hobbies. We all also interact with our hobbies in different ways and at different levels. And so someone might be like, oh, I'm just gonna watch a game every other week. Like this is something fun that I'll put on. Maybe it's an event with my friends. I don't really care about it that much, but I still care about it. Someone else might be, I know every stat for every player going back 90 years. It's like, okay, great, good for you. Like you really like that thing. But at the end of the day, it should be about we share this same interest, regardless of how much time you put into it. We should support each other in that. Like you care about the same thing I care about, like let's bond over that, instead of being like, oh no, you're not good enough at this thing that I care about, I don't want to be with you. And so yeah, I am firmly against gatekeeping in any role. Like if you want to do the thing, go do the thing. Like don't, as my wife said, don't yuck my yum, right? Like just let me enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. I always kind of feel like the people who pull name 3 XYZ whatever thing, like, man, like, you're doing this for you. You're not doing it for anybody else. Enjoy it.
Right. Also, we have a device in our pocket that can look that up. If I really want to know that, I'll just go search for it.
Can I just say one little thing about this before you do the next question?
Yeah.
I could be way off base, but I also think that's more just misogyny. I mean, I see that a lot more for cisgender white males saying like, oh, like if you don't know every song by this band, or if you don't know about this, I mean, I'm seeing it more as a male versus female thing. I can't remember the last time I was like in a knitter circle and a woman's like, oh, you don't know that stitch, you gotta leave. I mean, I just think that's like a guy thing and needs to fucking stop.
Yeah. I definitely think it's a guy thing. I don't think it's a race thing though, because when you look at like say soccer, right? Like Latin American countries, especially like
Machismo.
people. Yeah, right. The machismo, like people literally kill each other over, like, oh wow, yeah, you guys really need to chill out. But yeah, no, I definitely think it does trend more towards men doing it. And I think part of it is because men don't really know how to deal with their emotions very well. And so it's like, oh, you're intruding on this thing. I don't know how to deal with that. Like, well, dude, just talk. Like just recognize the fact this other person likes this thing, and try to find common ground. It's really not that hard.
Exactly. You with the orange hashtag back there.
And this conversation is happening kind of evolved my question. Over the years, we've noticed athletes moving into these more nerdy spaces, most notably the example for professional wrestling, going back to like Adam Pac-Man Jones wrestling in the aughts to the current day. will these athletes crossing over potentially help with gatekeeping in that sense? To be like, okay, you can enter this space and anyone is welcome, certainly.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd like to think I've helped with that a little bit, just being me. But yeah, no, I definitely think that it does help because it allows people to come together in a way where before you might not have known how to have that conversation, right? Like say you're a huge fantasy nerd and someone's a huge sports nerd, and like you do share a lot of similarities, but you just don't know how to talk to that other person. Whereas now it can be like you both like this same person that intersects both your interests. It's like, oh cool, we can talk about this person. Then we can go from there and figure out all the other things that we share with each other. So yeah, I firmly believe that does help. I hope more and more guys do that. And I hope we as human beings can extrapolate from that to people are complex, right? Like we are allowed to enjoy a variety of different things. Like we're allowed to be different from each other. That doesn't mean we have to fight with each other. Like let's find our similarities as opposed to, oh no, here's a friction point, let's focus on that instead.
I've seen you over here with the pink eggs.
So with mention of Taylor Swift, that brought to mind another fandom that you guys might not be too involved in, but I'm wondering if you see any similarities between sci-fi fantasy culture, sports culture, and celebrity culture, like following the Kardashians or Taylor Swift or any of that.
Yeah, no, I think there is a lot of similarities there. So for example, my wife watches The Real Housewives, and I'm just like, God damn it, why are you wasting your time? But at the end of the day, she likes The Real Housewives. She likes watching The Real Housewives, and like, okay, fine. I have to take my own advice and be like, I'm not going to yuck your yum. It's like, this is not for me, but I also need to not be on you about it because this is something you enjoy doing. And so I think at its core, this is all, it's just a basic human thing, right? Where we all have hobbies, we all like something, it's just those can be different things. And so understanding that and understanding that even if you don't get someone else's thing, like if you just completely do not understand it, that doesn't mean you should tell them to stop doing it. Like just accept the fact that, okay, this isn't for me. I'm going to find something that is for me. And then, because there are a lot of things that my wife and I do share in common, otherwise we probably wouldn't be together. So yeah, focusing on our similarities instead of our differences.
I think that's the most CONvergence thing that I've heard say. So congratulations, you've just won.
Yes, you with the pink circle.
Well, first off, thank you all for being here today. So my name's Renee, and I write adventures every month for Dragons, Dungeons, and Drinks. And one of the things that I'm often thinking about are motivations for why people do things, right? And one thing I feel like I've observed in both like writing D&D adventures and then also like sports culture is that it kind of seems like it's playing out this like theater of war, and that there's like almost this innate need for tribalism to like my team versus your team or my party versus the bad guys. And I guess I'm just curious on if you see anything that happens when people realize that this is like almost like a parasocial relationship where you're not actually part of a tribe, you don't know the other people wearing jerseys, and I'm just curious if you have anything to say about that.
Yeah, no, I think that's what leads to a lot of issues in fandom, right? Is that you really feel like this is a part of your identity, and so you have to protect that part of your identity, right? Because otherwise, who are you? If you can't decide who you are without this particular thing, if you feel like you're threatened, then you're going to react to that, right? And so I really do think people need to understand, though, that yes, you can make this part of your identity, but it's not your whole identity, right? And I've actually seen that a lot in football, where guys that I've played with, their entire life, they have defined themselves as a football player. Well, guess what? You don't get to play football your entire life. Like you're eventually not going to be a football player. And if you don't know who you are when that time comes, you're going to run into a lot of problems because now you have to figure out who you are. So yeah, I definitely think there is almost like a need for conflict, right? Like we enjoy competing with each other, but we have to understand that underneath it all, we're human beings, and we also need to be able to work with each other. And we need to be able to recognize that when that conflict escalates to a point where it's actively causing harm, either to ourselves or to others, we need to scale it back down and be like, oh no, it's gone too far, okay, we need to chill out. we need to understand it's just a game. This is just large men giving each other violent hugs. Like, it's okay.
it's true. I've never heard a more accurate description of football. If you're interested in the parasocial aspect of things, there is a panel later today at 7 p.m. about it.
I'll be on that one too, so. I'll be on time for that one.
Yes, the orange asterisk over there.
Yeah, I should see if I can remember what I was going to talk about. Oh yeah, so I was thinking about what Peter said earlier about too nerdy for my sports friends and too sporty for my nerd friends, and I think that, you know, there is this sort of need sometimes to like hide certain parts of ourselves around other people. Like, I better not let my con friends know that I gotta get home on Sunday, so I'm gonna watch a football game because I'm gonna be ousted, I'm gonna be out of the group, and vice versa. And I'm thinking about the ways that we are opening up how people can be in their full identity. So non-binary, you know, trans, there's just a lot of ways that our society as a whole is opening up to, we can hopefully step more into who we are. And I'm curious if you think these two phenomena are kind of linked in some way right now in our society, or if it's just a coincidence.
Yeah, no, I think they're absolutely linked, because again, it goes to the underlying thing of, do you allow someone to be who they are, right? Like, so in the case of, if you feel like you have to hide, you know, what you're doing on the weekend, that's, you know, it's fundamentally the same thing as, do I feel like I have to hide who I am? Because you are hiding a part of who you are. And so, like, hopefully as a society, we can understand that it's okay for people to be who they are. Like, I feel like that should not be a controversial thing to say. And it's like for me personally, I just want to be left alone. And so, but in order to live in that world where I'm left alone, everyone else has to be able to be left alone to be who they are. And the problem is a lot of people think that, oh, we have to abide by these certain social constructs, right? Like, if you don't do this particular thing, then you're not a good member of society. And, you know, whether that's due to your socioeconomic background, your religious background, whatever it happens to be, like, it limits you as a human being, because you're not recognizing another person as a human being. You're denying a fundamental part of who they are. So yeah, I think there is the issues in gaming, there's the issues in sports, there's the issues in politics, there's it's a human issue, and we just have to learn how to accept each other and understand that yes, sometimes you won't get what someone else likes, but that's okay. Like, that's fine. It's just not for you. Go find the things that you like, go do those.
Exactly. I saw you had, are you still,
Yeah, was
okay.
just kind of wondering, from the perspective, you have some organizations that focus more heavily on the entertainment as opposed to the sports aspect, like our St. Paul Saints have a wonderful experience, even if you are not there necessarily for the game in and of itself. And the consumer experience in the event stadium, even whether you're at the big stadiums or at the St. Paul Saints venue, it's more and more about the guest experience and the entertainment. But then you also have organizations like the Savannah Bananas, where it seems to be much more entertainment than sports. But then I was also starting to think, because I also work in legal, the big event venues, they only get so much out of sports events, and that as an industry, so they're doing all the concerts and they're trying to get all the big events. So I'm wondering, do you ever encounter within the realm of sports that, is sports just its own industry in and of itself, and the event venues are just their own thing, or is sports sometimes considered just only one aspect of the entertainment industry?
Yeah, so I'm gonna try to break that down. Sorry, that's a complex one. So for me, one of the things that, and I made this argument a lot back during the same-sex marriage ban when I was speaking out against it, is that if from a purely business perspective, if you want to make the most money possible, you have to appeal to the largest amount of people possible. And that's something that I don't think a lot of sports like conglomerates or people in the sports industry have yet really understood. Is that, yeah, you can keep your narrow like fan base, or you can expand that and make more money because you have more potential customers. And sure, you might lose some bigots, but you're gonna make up for it from all the other people who are like, oh, I can actually support this now because it aligns with my values. And so yeah, I think just purely from an economic standpoint that hopefully these industries understand the economic argument of appealing to the largest amount of people, and that is what will get you more money. And like talking about the venues, right? If you only host 16 football games, right? Or let's be real, because you only get half the season in home games. If you only host like 8 or 9 home games, that's a lot of days of the year where your business is not doing anything, and you still got to pay rent and utilities. So you should be looking for other opportunities to use that venue, and you're starting to see that with the big stadiums, right? Where like, oh yeah, no, we got to get concerts in here, like we got to get events in here, because they have to justify the cost of the stadium, and they're trying to make money. And so yeah, I definitely see that being like, okay, if you want even more money, well, shoot, why not have just like a massive live action role play in the middle of US Bank? Like, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that would actually really enjoy that. And it's like, doesn't matter that it's not sports, like someone wants to enjoy doing it, you've got this space to do it in, like, do it. So.
Yeah, and just to add on real quick, one example where the cultures collide again is Gen Con, I believe, because I think it's at Lucas Oil Stadium.
Yeah, a big part of it's in Lucas Oil Field.
So we only have a few minutes left. I'm going to let these 2 questions be the last 2. I'll start with the blue circle.
Just wanted to say we are starting to see more acceptance. It's a very optimistic thing. You get Jamal Williams, who in the NFL, who's a massive Naruto fan, and he will not stop talking about it.
We need more of that.
Right, and you hear about on movie sets where somebody's a huge D&D nerd and teaches Dame Judi Dench to play, and you know that's still a story, but it's becoming a lot more common.
Right. Yeah. Like Vin Diesel, for example. Like huge D&D nerd. Like it's. And I'll tell you what. If you want to get ratings on a football game, have someone Naruto run into the end zone. That'll go viral.
I feel like I've seen like the Kamehameha wave on some of those celebrations. Right. So it's cool stuff. You there with the orange asterisk?
Yeah. So I was kind of curious. So. Have you ever seen like the influence of like nerd culture bring in like cultural discussions within sports that might have not normally occurred if we didn't have the influence of nerd culture? And like an example I can think of is like when The Last of Us came out and the DLC came out and there was a same-sex relationship, and then Last of Us was huge in my football team, and it was like a discussion that we never would have like even have brought up if it wasn't for that aspect of nerd culture. So I'm curious if you have any examples of that, or if you've seen it in these like spaces that are dominated by like saying like gender homogenous.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a great question. I actually do have a real life example of that. So when I wrote my first letter that went viral, they won't magically turn you into a lustful cock monster. So that was when I was speaking up for LGBTQ rights with the Vikings. My whole framing in that argument was built off of being on the Wild Realm forums for about 2 to 3 years at that point, which, you know, was a very specific type of language, and it was heavily nerd influenced, right? It was very much geek culture, but what it did was, by writing that piece the way I did, it allowed people to start a conversation with, hey, did you see the football player's piece with the funny swearing in it? And then from there it goes into, what was he talking about? Which in this case was same-sex marriage, which, you know, and it can be hard for people to have those conversations, right? Like, it can be very hard to walk up to someone and be like, so, what do you think about LGBTQ rights? Like, it's not usually a conversation you have in the locker room, but when it comes in via another vector where you know it's a shared interest that everyone has, and it then brings up something that is something society needs to talk about, I think that's very valuable, because human beings, we're not perfect. Like we occupy our own heads, but we never really know what someone else is thinking. But if we have the chance to talk to each other, and if we know we're coming from a shared space, it becomes a lot easier to have those conversations. And I think that is one way that nerd culture really can help, is to be like, yes, this is popular entertainment. It is consumed by a lot of people, particularly people in the sports world. Let's talk about some of these issues, because, you know, it's tough to be like, finish running some half-gassers. It's like, so, what do you think about trans rights? Dude, now's not the time. Like, I'm tired. But yeah, no, that's a very good question. Yeah, I really hope that starts happening more and more and more, because we need to be having those conversations. Because at the end of the day, we are human beings and we are complex creatures, and we have to understand we have to let each other survive. Like, we can't dismiss people simply because of who they are.
Awesome. Yeah, that was an excellent question to end on. I think I'd like to give the panelists a quick minute to talk about anything else that they're doing at CONvergence, any other panels, things like that. So Peter, we'll start with you.
I've got 3 things. One, and this is specifically for Chris Kluwe, would any of you play a tabletop NFL game with me where you roll for initiative and roll for passing? Because if we don't have it here, I will literally go to my house later and get it, because it's so fun.
I was gonna say, isn't that just Blood Bowl?
Yeah, it is, but it's the board game, not the video game.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, Blood Bowl, the board game. Yeah,
You played the board game?
Yes, I have.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I actually, so I ran a tabletop gaming store for 5 years in Costa Mesa.
I'm sorry I didn't read that on Wikipedia, sorry.
No, it's like, that's one of the many things. Yeah, I know I've done a lot of things.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I played Blood Bowl. I just gotta make sure it fits in my schedule.
If anyone, I'm not on Discord, but if anyone wants to organize like a Discord, like say on Discord, hey, people who want to play tabletop football will be in this place at this time. The other 2 things are talking about raising awareness and bringing values in. NFL and NBA always does this thing where they talk about ending racism. They have stuff in their helmets and their jersey, whatever, that say like, I hate racism or this and that. I haven't seen that yet for LGBTQ stuff yet. Maybe the WNBA does that because they're always more woke than everyone else, but I'd love to see that. I'd also love to see either hockey masks or football helmets just with like, I love Naruto and I'm an ally. So like, I mean, like NASCAR, like I just would like to see just more like what the derby players would do back in the day. Put all your interests in politics here, and then they can have a podcast, and so you can listen to them when it's not Sunday. And then the last thing, thanks to Chris and Melissa, I'm going to start coming out to my friends as poly-nerdtastic or poly-obsessive, because I'm obsessed with multiple things, not just nerds, not just sports, but a lot of things.
Very cool.
I'm nowhere else other than if you see Hawkman walking around later, that would be me.
All right, so I have a meet and greet at 2 today. I think that's down in the dealer's room. And then I will be taking part in the Crafting Smorgasbord at 3:30. And then the Parasocial Relationships panel at 7. I will be on that one. And yeah, I'm at Chris Warcraft on Blue Sky, because I got banned from Twitter for impersonating Elon Musk because he sucks. Hopefully I'll see you around the fun.
Yeah, take that $8 blue check mark. I'm Ryan. I don't have any other panels that I'm going to be on, but I will plug Harrison Daiko on Sunday. Terrific group if you like the idea of Japanese drumming as you're hungover or whatever on Sunday. Check them out.
The perfect cure.
Yeah. The perfect needs more drumming. They're fantastic. Thank you for attending, and I hope you had a good time here.
Thank you, everyone.
Let's go, Lynx.